Conservatives say controversial CIA methods, such as waterboarding, that were revealed in Bush administration memos, make the country safer. But now some Democrats want to prosecute the lawyers who wrote them. Should they be held responsible? I asked that question today to Democratic Senator Dianne Feinstein, chairwoman of the Senate Intelligence Committee, just a few moments ago. Senator, thank you very much for joining us.
You're welcome.
Let me ask you about a letter that you wrote to President Obama asking him to hold off on giving a blanket exoneration to top Bush administration officials who had ordered those interrogations. You want your committee to hold hearings to investigate first. Why?
Well, let me explain. Our committee is doing a classified review, a study, if you will, of the conditions of detention and interrogation of all of the so-called high-value detainees. We anticipate that this will be done within 6 or 8 months. The first 2 have been accomplished. And I think until all the facts are out, at least before the Intelligence Committee, in a classified setting, and the Intelligence Committee has an opportunity to consider these facts, and if it chooses, make certain findings or recommendations, that it is really premature to cast any value judgments.
Now, in a photo opportunity today, in a meeting when he was asked about this with King Abdullah of Jordan, the president said just now that he should not prejudge, and he seemed to be making a distinction, as I think you certainly imply in your letter, between the operatives in the field who were following rulings that came to them from the White House and the Justice Department, and those who ordered this. Do you make that distinction in your own mind as you look at this, at least in the going into the investigation?
Well, I'm not going to comment on the investigation, except to say that the committee staff are looking at all aspects of the program. And I think
But do you think that there should be a difference between those who asked for guidance, legal guidance, and were then following those orders at the agency, obviously, or the people working with them, and those in top positions in the Bush administration who came up with the policy and ordered it and wrote those memos?
I think as a policy that makes sense. It has to be pointed out that one of the things that we have learned is that the interrogations were not carried out by CIA permanent employees. Rather, they were carried out by people contracted to do so by the agency. And it's been only recently that the agency has essentially aborted the contract. This is something of which I have been critical. The FBI does its own interrogation quite successfully. FBI interrogators have had substantial success, and I think that there's no place for contractors, or should be no place for contractors. So, you know, that's a side issue, but it is relevant in this situation.
Now, what the president said today was that he did not think that there should be prosecution of those who carried out interrogations, quote, within the 4 corners of guidelines that came to them. But with respect to those who formulated the policy, that is something that he would not prejudge.
Right, and that's his view, and I think that's perfectly fine. I withhold judgment until I see all the facts, until our study is completed. It is probably the largest effort that the Senate Intelligence Committee has made. It's a major, major effort, and it will continue on for several months until the detention and interrogation of every one of these detainees is looked at. The records evaluated, the cables evaluated, the situation evaluated and reported on. And all of this will be in a classified work, which will then go before the committee for its consideration. So I'm not prejudging anything.
I know you're not prejudging, Senator, but you're also on the Judiciary Committee, and Senator McCaskill, one of your colleagues, has suggested that the Senate should look at impeaching Federal Appeals Court Judge Jay Bybee, who was one of the authors of the memo when he was in the White House, or rather when he was an Assistant Attorney General. He is now on the Ninth Circuit. He holds a major role and lifetime tenure. A lot of people are raising questions about that.
Well, I think I can say this as a 16-year member of the Judiciary Committee. Had this been known at the time, he most likely would not have been confirmed. But that's, of course, in our present-day reference. None of this was known at the time.
But Is there some way that, I mean, impeachment is one form, that someone should look at a lifetime member of the appeals court bench who wrote the memos that are, frankly, as controversial as they are?
Well, I'm not really prepared to get into that at this time, at this point. Let us see how this works out, and then if you ask me later, I may have a comment. But right now, I don't have a comment on that.
What is your view of what the former vice president said? Vice President Cheney, let me play a little bit of it for you. He is demanding that there be a declassification of other memos, which he says prove that the enhanced interrogation techniques, what others commonly refer to as torture, worked. Let me play it for you.
Well,
They didn't put out the memos that show the success of the effort. And there are reports that show specifically what we gained as a result of this activity. They have not been declassified. I formally ask that they be declassified.
Should they be declassified, and do they think that would change our view of these techniques?
it's my understanding, as the Vice President has said, that he has requested that they be unclassified. I have reviewed these reports, and I can't comment because they're classified. So if there is a decision to unclassify them, then a comment would be appropriate.
Let me ask you more broadly about the former vice president's criticism, Michael Hayden, former Secretary Chertoff, and others who are saying that all of this has been a mistake, that it has harmed national security, and that the Obama administration, the president, should not have released these memos.
Well, these were very important, critical memos, and they led to a path the United States took. Information about that path is just now coming out more fully, and decisions made are being looked at. That's not to say or conclude about these decisions, but it is to say that it is our job to provide oversight of the intelligence community. We can't do that without knowing what's going on or what has went on. So that's the effort at present. The effort is to take a long, good look at what has transpired since 2002 in the area of detention and interrogation and make some findings. And we have a scope of work. It's a bipartisan effort. Both sides will sign off on it, and we will exercise this mandate with considerable care.
And finally, I know you've got to go, but Senator, your letter yesterday certainly suggested that you were concerned that the president's initial comments on this, not his comments today, but his initial comments seemed to be shutting down or ruling out prosecutions. And you want to leave that door open until you've completed your investigation.
Well, what I'm saying is I think we should hold back any value judgments until the committee has been able to do its work. And then I think it's appropriate to comment when you've been able to look at all of the evidence. We haven't seen it. I don't believe many people have seen it, and it'll take a little bit of time, but I think the judgments made as a product of it will be much better judgments.
Senator Dianne Feinstein, the chairwoman of the Intelligence Committee, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much, Andrea.